Greetings, all Shardvixen here. Oh, wow. Wow, what a week since the last time we were on. Wow, things have just been popping, haven't they? Popping. Okay, so we know I have to have my say in it as well. And we're going to talk about all the things that are going through the brain. But we're going to do brain food, and brain food is privilege. So, I find that a lot of people get very upset when people talk about white privilege. Now, I was one of those people. This is why I can tell you that growth is possible. But before we go into that, let me warn you. This may not be a topic you want to watch if you're looking for happy, cheerful, fun stuff. That might be next week. I don't know. A lot can happen in our brain. And, Rambling 101 is kind of this way. But this is brain food. And brain food is about talking about things that we think about. Things that we all think about. Not just my little brain go, blah, 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 okay? My face really hurts. So I might all of a sudden kind of... And a lot of it has to do with the cottonwood out there is releasing its babies. And the babies affect me really bad. And we went for a walk today and then even in my own backyard. Excitingly, the battle of the blackberry is over. A gentleman came and just cut them all down for me.
Look, chickens. Alright, so just wanted to show you. Blackberries are gone. Also, working on that. Building my door again, which broke. So it's almost ready to paint.
I paid him $40 and he just did it and then I gave him $40 because that's just nice, Anyway, and I think that I wouldn't be honest to myself if I didn't do a vlog concerning not just George Floyd and what happened to him and the horrendousness of it, but also about what I have learned about myself. And these are my opinions and my concept of the things I'm going to talk about. And I am an activist. I'm not a protester. I do not go out and protest anymore because I'm selfish and a coward. I'm selfish because I value my life a lot above probably many people out there. And I am empathetic to their causes and I'm empathetic to what they do, but I am not going to go out there and tempt fate because I'd be the one the police would knock over. I'd be the one that the protesters would hit. I would be the one that whoever was starting the violence would decide to pick on me. I just have luck like that. That's kind of my fate in life, is to be in the midst of something and get the worst of it or the brunt of it. So I quit protesting in the 80s, and I am active every single day of my life to make sure that when I hear someone say something that I find offensive, I say something. But if I think that they are part of what I call the hidden racism society, which is where they don't think they're racist, they're not being racist, but they're not aware that the things that they say are hurtful. That's how I'm active. I brought my children up to be open-minded, and I explained that how you know something is not good, that it's wrong, is when it hurts another person or a group. And the thing is that I didn't know anything about white privilege either. I didn't. I was raised but that's because I was raised in a town that had no black people in it until I was 16 years old. That's when I first saw my first black person in town. Now, on TV you saw black people sometimes. Sometimes you saw actors, white actors with blackface, pretending to be black people. Again, doing really ridiculous, stupid things. Most of my education about people outside of my own little circle was through books and magazines and National Geographic. That's where I learned about other cultures and other people and other things. My mother, who wasn't overly racist, was that hidden racism where she'd say, well, they're not like us. Well, how are they? I'd ask her, how are they not like us? And she wouldn't be able to answer that because she had just been brought up that way. I remember when I was, I had to be about 16 or so when my grandmother, I might have been older, when my grandmother made comments that I realized that she had the hidden racism as well. And then I just realized that many people who think they're not racist are racist. And it's not that they're racist with the intent because they hate people that are a different race, but because they don't understand that the other race. I mean, so my father was very racist. He was blatantly racist. He was pretty much, you ever date somebody of another race, even though he had, um, he said if you ever dated anyone that was not white, any other race, I will kill you. And then I will kill them. But he also said the same thing to me, that if he ever found out that I had sex, he would strip me and the other person naked and burn the house down. My father was the person that I should have went out and went on a date without my parents' permission, because I wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. And they were both standing at the door, and my dad was holding a gun for whoever it was. I just made him drop me off further away from the house because I knew what was going to happen. My father was part of, if not actively, I am sure that he knew people that were part of the KKK. So I was raised in a household with my mothers. They're human, but they're different. And then my father, who was like totally kill them all. So I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to accept everybody. I thought it was very hypocritical of my father, who had quite a few friends who were Hispanic. Most of them saying they were from Mexico. And he would make comments about that, and I would say, he'd say, but he's not. He's white. He acts white. Like, how do you act white? The whole American culture acts white, because it's just about assimilation. So to get into the privilege, though, the meaning of privilege isn't what people think. And so I'm going to read the actual definition. I have to look it up. Hang on. You get to see my beautiful hair. Talk about my hair, right? So the actual meaning is a special right. That's what people usually think is special right. But it's also an advantage or immunity. And immunity is a big one. Okay, that's the one that you see a lot about white privilege, is the immunity because you're white. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And it's to a group. It's not to an individual. Though in the systematic racism, individuals do also have white privilege. And I saw a really great video on that on Instagram, in which they took Kevin and Jamal, and they explained how just because Jamal had a different name, when he put resumes in, people were more like to go with Kevin, because Kevin's very American sounding. And, that's the thing that you have to kind of understand about this. It's not that they had anything against Jamal as Jamal. They just like the name Kevin because we are thought of as the white American, and we want American-like names. We want American-like culture. We want American-like families. And though companies will not hire people sometimes with ethnic names, they will. And you say, oh, that's not true. I have seen it. I know that's true. I worked for a Jamaican lady. She was born and raised in Jamaica, and she came to California, and she opened up a house cleaning business. And while I was in college, off and on, I worked for her because it was good money. And she hired me because she had clients that would prefer a white person cleaning their house. She told me that, straight up. And her and me had an interesting relationship. I enjoyed her a lot. I think she liked me, but I don't know, maybe not. And but she would send me to some people that were just hellaciously racist. Well, okay, first of all, this way. I learned about it in school. Okay, not high school, not for my 2-year degree, not in my 4-year degree, but in my master's degree, it was required that I take an ethical class, a cultural class, a class on, it wasn't racism, but it was the cultural class and understanding. I didn't like the cultural class because I didn't like how the book was written. I felt that the book was very, even though they were trying to be very scientific, I thought if you were of a different, because even with the Caucasian thing, culture, where they'd say the English American culture, it just felt so, I don't know, it just felt weird. It just felt weird. I didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. But, I did the class and I got a C in the class. It was really weird. It was the worst grade I ever got in my master's degree besides my statistics class. I was like, I'm so cultural aware, and apparently I am not culturally aware. And I get that, I didn't even know there was systematic racism. I didn't even know that people were being prejudiced against when I was a teen and well into my young adulthood. I didn't know that. I mean, I had friends of color, which is what they called themselves, and some of them still call that. They call themselves people of color, and some people don't. And they never once ever told me. They'd say things like, "Oh yeah, so and so, I can't go into that restaurant because so and so doesn't like, people like me." And I'd be like, "People like, like what, And then when I realized what they were talking about, I was like, "Oh my God, really?" And I'm like, "Well, that's my friends, and they were great, and I loved them, and I couldn't imagine anybody not being nice to them." But I have to say that I was taught that his Mexican men and black men would hurt me because I was white. That's what I was taught. Because I was a white woman, and if I was out after a certain time, I would be targeted as being a whore or a prostitute, and those people would hurt me. Though, interesting enough, both times I was raped were by white people. And the one time that I was assaulted was a police officer, a white police officer. So I just, for a long time, was afraid of men. And the couple of times that I've been physically assaulted, like beat up, like wasn't sexually, like didn't have a sexual assault charge to it, were women. And also all white. So, but that's my experience. So when we talk about white privilege, and it took me many classes and many questioning and many understanding, and the first time I heard it, I felt bad. I felt guilt. I felt, wait a minute, I'm not privileged. I don't get any special treatment. Wrong. I get special treatment every day. Because I go into a Walmart here in Oregon, and there's very few ethnic groups along with me. It's white. So here's the thing. Hang on. I looked this up just so you would understand. Just so I could explain how I saw it. So in America, we have 328,239,523 people. Okay? Of that, 13% is Black American, African American. 13%. So the majority is white. Now, of that, there is a 10% white that's considered themselves Hispanic or Latino. Okay? Now, that's just the ones that reported on the census, right? So I looked up Oregon. So Oregon, Springfield, Oregon, where I live, has an 87% white. One of the creators that I really like and I listen to, she said she wanted to move, and I said I love Oregon, and she said Oregon is a very hard place to live if you're black. I was like, really? But then I'm not black, so I wouldn't know it, and I think that's what we don't understand. That's why I think people have such a hard time about it. They don't understand what people are trying to tell them. I don't know what it feels like to be black. I'm not black. I don't know what it feels like to be Hispanic or Asian or any of those things because I'm not. I'm white. All I know what it feels like is what it is to be a white woman. That's all I know. And interestingly enough, of that population, 50% of them are women. I don't know why we haven't decided to take over the world. Because that means if it was 50.3% are women, we are like 3% higher than men. Because that would make it 49.7% were males. So technically, there's more females in the United States than there are males. And Hawaii has the least, is the one state out of 50 states that has a native population and an Asian population and the Filipino population that is higher than any other state and less whites. So why is this important to me? Well, it's not important whether you really agree or disagree. I don't care really. I mean, what I want you to do is brain food is about thinking about stuff. It's about looking for the answers yourself. You do not have to feel bad because you're white and you have a white privilege. That's not what that's about. It's not about making you feel bad. What it is about making you aware that how hard it is for anyone else in the world, sometimes in America, not in the world, in America, to be at that starting point where it's already fair for everybody. Because fair doesn't mean everybody gets fair doesn't mean that everybody gets the same thing. It doesn't mean that I get to be the billionaire because everyone else is a billionaire. But it does mean that I get to start at the exact same place as that billionaire did and move my way forward. Now, that's not always true. We know this. There are people who are born billionaires. So they have an unfair advantage from the rest of us. But for the most part, the idea of fair means that we all start at the same starting line. And some people in our country are not starting at the same starting line. They're so far behind us that they can never get caught up. One of the things I thought was interesting, I didn't learn about also until college, was the concept of redlining areas on a map. And that's where you put all the undesirables. That's where you sold houses to people that weren't white. Even low-income white people got better places than black Americans. I consider myself an American. I was born in America. My father was born in America. His father was born in America. But my great-grandfather was not. He was born in Ireland, one of them. The other one was born in Portugal. And then on my mother's side, they've been here on both sides of hers, maternal and paternal, since the 1600s in Pennsylvania. So, and they're of German descent, though, as well as Dutch and Scottish, and probably some English. Not sure exactly, but, you know, that's how that goes. Those are the races that were put in to make me. But I see myself as Caucasian American. Because I was born here. And the thing is, that's how I see myself. That's how pretty much always saw myself. It was only until other people point out that, you know, my ancestors have only been here for this length of time while their ancestors were here longer. And I get that. I do. And I can honor that. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't have any other place to go. I was born here. That's just it. That's all there is. I don't know, you know, the thing that gets me, though, is that when you look at George Floyd's video, the brutality and the indifference that the person had there, Mr. Chauvin, I think his name is, Derek Chauvin, of leaning on that guy's neck and not listening to anybody else. I mean, his face just had no thing. I mean, Glee would have been interesting, or it would have been better, because then you would have known. But he just didn't care for that person at all. And that's the worst part right there. That's the worst part. And as far as it goes for the looters, this is my own personal opinion, but no property should ever be more important than another person's life. Ever. Ever. looting is a criminal action, and I get that. But you shouldn't be killing people because they're looting you. You should just step away from it, wait for it to pass, because it will, as do all angry. It's very hard to stay angry continuously. So in psychology, like I said, you're required, when you go to school and you go to a psychology major, you're required to take things that teach you about empathy, compassion, and other things. The problem is I have met a lot of people who've gone through those, and at the end of it still have no more empathy or compassion than they had begin. Because we as humans will choose what we believe. We will choose to listen to those things that we think are right, whether they're based on our religion, whether they're based on our personal experience, whether they're based on our information that is out there. So, even if, as I've heard some of my friends say, everything that the news is reporting is false, even if the things we are seeing are not true, the moment you do something that is based on how another person looks, that is hurtful to another person, I don't care. It's wrong. There are circumstances, we know this, like if someone hits me in the face, then I have the right to hit that person back if I choose so. But I have to deal with the consequences that come from that. But if I only hit that person because of the color of their skin, because of the religion that they are part of, because of the culture that they are, from where they came from, not because they attacked me, okay, but because I just don't like those things, that's not right. I really don't believe that's right. And I taught my children that. I tell my children to have an open mind and think about what is it that we want in the country we are. Now, if you say to yourself, I want a country that's all white, well, good luck with that, but it's not all white. 80%, 70% of it's white, but not all of it. And there really isn't, you can't really live in a world that's all white. Everybody has a little bit. And then the other thing is, too, I think, for me, is we are all related. We are all human beings. Good, bad, ugly, fat, whatever. We are all related. And in that aspect, that has to mean something. It does to me. I don't know, maybe it doesn't to other people, but it does to me. I try very hard not to judge people by the outwardness or the culture or anything like that. I have a hard time understanding some cultures, but I try not to judge them by that. What I try to judge them by is their actions. So even if you are a racist, and even if you believe that your race is better, police brutality should not be allowed. Because the moment you give power to an entity, not individuals, but entity, who then have individuals that are doing what they need to do, and you say it's okay to torture and abuse and kill people when they're not doing what they should be doing without peers to judge them, which that's not infallible either, but we have all these things in place. The moment we give all this power to those entities, it will turn back on us eventually. That is my belief. I have seen police brutality, not just with my clients in the last 20 years to 30 years, but also in my neighborhood growing up, and then my neighborhoods I lived in. I have seen less than compassionate empathy people who work for a government agency that are meant to protect and serve. I don't see the protect and serve anymore. I see the enforce and control. That's what I see. I am afraid of police officers because of that. A lot of it has to do with my own anxiety and the fact that I can't control. I'm not in control when I'm with them. They're in control. And if you do something wrong or you look wrong, they will bring down a force that can destroy your life, and in the case of Mr. Floyd, kill you, imprison you, and have people believe them. So I think in the end here, the concept that I want to talk about is think about what it is you want from the world. If you want a world that's all white, that's your thing. I'm not, I don't, it's not my thing. I probably wouldn't have much to talk to you about. But if you want a world where your children and your grandchildren, you have no way to control your great-grandchildren, can live all together and work together and make the world a better place and get things that they want and stuff like that, then we need to figure out a way to bring all of our children together. My grandson, most people know this, but my grandson is half Filipino, and in his Filipino is Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and the tribal Native, they're not American, Native Asian islanders who live in the Philippines. I can't remember the name right now. So when people talk about hurting people of various other races besides white, I look at his life and hope that the world is going to get better, and he will not be subject to that. And I will do the best here to protect him from that, but eventually he will go out in the world and he will meet people who will look at him and not like him because the color of his skin. There's no way you can work around that, I don't think, personally. I mean, you can do it with crazy logic, but other than that, there isn't. And we need to change the hidden racism. We need to change the systematic racism. We need to change the redlining. We need to make sure that every single person born in America is starting at the same spot in the starting line. And that includes people who are rich. Anyway, this one went over long, but I probably won't revisit this unless we have more stuff going on down the road. I like to try to keep my vlogs on ideas of things we can think about that aren't overly depressing all the time, but the state of our world right now is very chaotic. We've had the virus, we've had the pandemic. We now have people shouting for justice who have not had justice, and I'm 100% behind them. There should be justice. There should be people accountable for hurting other people, and that's really important to me. So it's possible I could talk about it again. Also, if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you don't agree with any of this, you have the absolute perfect right to make a comment about it. If you get mean and rotten about it, I'll probably leave you a comment up, but I would suggest you just unfollow me, because if you don't like this stuff, there's lots of stuff I talk about down the road that you probably aren't going to like. I don't really get into my religion or culture or things like that, but I do pick up stuff and talk about it because that's what I am. That's me. But anyway, I just want to say that I am glad that all 4 of those officers were arrested. I think it was very horrific what happened to George Floyd. It's even sadder that his daughter now has been deprived of ever knowing her father. It is interesting that she is very proud of him for changing the world, which is a good way to look at it from a child point of view, and probably even from an adult point of view, but should not lessen in any way what was done to him. We should remember him and all the others who have not gotten justice for the crimes done to them by the people who are supposed to protect and serve all of us in America. I'm hoping that from this we'll see a change in the way the police work in America. I am hoping that people will still figure out a way to still have ways of protecting us, because we don't want anarchy either. I don't want people to just run amok, but there's got to be a way my personal belief is robots, but robots are straight logic, so they're only as good as the people that program them. Anyway, so that's all I have to say on this subject. It's not the only time I say on the subject, and I will always have comments and talks about it and things like that. And a lot of times you'll find stuff in my Discord that pop up about it when I think things need to be said. I will say, probably more about sexism and genderism than racism when I'm talking about it, but I am 100% behind Black Lives Matter. 100%. Because, you know, it's important. All right, that's it. You know, I could ramble forever, but we're not going to do that. Next week is Ramble On. I would suggest that you guys watch Philip DeFranco. He's got some good insights. He shares a lot of stuff. He's really great about that. There's a lot of good stuff on Twitter. If you are not very interested in Trump or Biden, I would check out the Peace and Freedom Movement. And yes, they're socialists, but they're not like you think socialists. They're not fascism. Another one is the Green Party, of course. There are other options we have out there that we could vote for change. And so that would be my suggestion for you to do. This one's kind of long, but it's an important subject, and we all need to have it said. All right, so any questions you have, go ahead and address those questions down below. I will answer them. If you'd like to come to my Discord, you may do so. You can comment on Twitter. You can comment on Instagram. I do have a Facebook. You can go there as well. And I hope that everyone is feeling great. And eventually we pull ourselves past this chaotic event and we make change happen. And we move towards a better America. All right. Catch y'all later.